We'll be starting soon for those who are joining us on Zoom. Just see a few people are just coming in right now. They still have their jackets on, even though it's not too cold in the sanctuary. It's a nice temperature. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's good to see you, those who are joining us in person and those on Zoom and those on live stream. Welcome. January 24th. I really did look at that date and just say to myself, it really was just the New Year's. I know, it's a weird thing the way time works sometimes. And considering, I don't know, this past week and a half or so has been there's a lot that's been going on in the world. It is remarkable. I almost decided to speak about that phrase, the curse of living in interesting times. But I found out it's a made-up phrase. It's not a Chinese ancient piece of wisdom. It's an American piece of wisdom. And I decided because I don't know. Then I started to think maybe that doesn't even make any sense, the curse of living in interesting times. Because I thought about the opposite of that, which might be what? Living in boring times? When does that ever happen? So I decided I didn't like the topic. I'll be addressing something else. But I do think we are living in interesting times. So we begin by separating to some extent. I think there's a wisdom in this idea of lighting the candles and separating time, just saying, okay, we are beginning this day of Shabbat, and we can, if we try, to kind of like enter into it. So in part, it requires us to let go of the stuff that's in our minds, but on the other hand, it's here to help us kind of refocus on the stuff that's in the world, to feel that we have a say and we have some control and that we can do something. There are many things we can do, and I think Shabbat helps us focus. So please turn to page 121 as we call Michelle Potvin up to lead us in the kindling of the Shabbat lights. The blessing is on page 120, of course, but the reading beforehand is on 121. And I just realized I didn't light this candle, but stand right here so everyone can see you. If you don't mind reading that in English first.
This in English?
Yes.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find the knowledge of which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Cutting off of
I
love.
figured.
You got it right.
All right, say the blessing in Hebrew.
Let's light the candles first, and then we can say the blessing. I have it up here.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
And with the separating and welcoming of Shabbat, we have the Lecha Dodi. We call forward Stan Goldklang to help lead us in the singing on page 138.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala. Pene pene Shabbat nekabela la la. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala. Pene pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala. Pene pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zochor b'dibur echad. Hishmianu hamayu echad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem tiferet v'liti la 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 lecha lecha dodi. Likrat kala. P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi. Likrat kala. P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gab simcha uvetzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala. P'nei Shabbat nekabela la la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala. P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala. P'nei Shabbat nekabela.
If we think we are living in interesting times, maybe feeling that there is a sense of division in our country, for example, far from where it was when Abraham Lincoln gave his inaugural address. These are words from that moment. I hope that they can remind us of, no matter what is happening in the world, of how to see things. And I'm going to ask Jody Laxer, if you wouldn't mind reading this passage. Again, written and spoken originally by President Abraham Lincoln in one of the most turmoil periods of our country's history.
We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power, but we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us, and we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. You want me to read that?
Sure.
A national day of fasting, humiliation, and prayer. Proclamation, March 30th, 1863.
Thank you. Lincoln would go on at other moments in the midst of the Civil War, for example, to say, we are not enemies. We are friends. We must remain friends in those moments. And so sometimes going back in history is an important thing. We don't always have to reinvent the wheel, as they say. We can learn from how our ancestors dealt with adversity. We can turn now to page 146, and those who are able to rise for the Baruch Hu.
Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Leolam Vaed.
Don't go too far. I was feeling a connection with some of my favorite poetry, also as a way of soothing my soul. The prayer that comes right after the Baruch Hu traditionally is one that thanks God for the creation of evening, of time, of the universe itself. And so this is a poem by Ruth Bryn, which for me also captures the power of that prayer. Hail the hand that scattered space with stars, wrapped whirling world in bright blue blanket air, made worlds within worlds, elements in earth, souls within skins, every one a teeming universe, every tree a system of semantics, and pushed beyond probability to place consciousness on this cooling crust of burning rock. Oh, praise that hand, mind, heart, soul, powerful force that so enclosed, separated, limited planets, trees, humans, yet breaks all bounds and borders to lavish on us light, love, life, this trembling glory. We continue now as we remain standing for the Shema, and we enter into the Shema with a meditation, page 152, 153.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. We will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
May be seated as I was supposed to be reading in between there. Please turn to page 158. We always say the Mi Chamocha, right? It's always part of our prayer service in the morning and the evening. And it's a reminder, of course, of the Exodus from Egypt, because it comes from Shir HaShirim, the Song of the Sea, after the Israelites escape Egypt and are finally free. But it does beg the question why we say it every single Shabbat and service, every day, every morning, every evening. Isn't it enough to know the concept of freedom? It is one of the pieces of wisdom in my belief of Judaism. It's not enough just to know it. You must repeat it over and over until it becomes a part of who you are in everything that you do. We continue with the Micha Mocha, page 158.
Micha mocha bailim Adonai. Micha mocha bailim Adonai. No,
Nora,
Tehilot, Osei Fele, Nora, Tehilot, Osei Fele, Micha mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha mocha, Nedar Bakodesh.
V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, u'galo mi'ad chazak mimenu baruch atah Adonai gal Yisrael. Blessed are you, God, the Redeemer of Israel and the teacher of freedom. Page 160, a prayer for evening. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha, v'taknenu be'etzah tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu l'ma'an shemecha. And on page 161, together in English. One second. Just let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, la'al Yerushalayim. We continue on page 164, again as we rise together, this time for the tefillah, the Amidah.
Adonai,
Adonai,
Sifatai Tiftach,
Sifatai Tiftach,
Ufi Yagid,
Ufi Yagid,
Tehilatecha,
Tehilatecha,
Adonai,
Adonai,
open up my lips,
open up my lips,
that my mouth
that my
may
mouth
declare your praise.
may declare your praise. Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol Atarav L'Hoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakeh Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayei Hakol
Berachamim Rabim.
Somech Noflim V'Rofech Olim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mkayem Emunato, L'Shenei Afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, u'mido melach, melech me'mid u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, v'neman atah l'chayot hakol, baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'toshim b'chol yom yulecha selah, baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. I do wonder, on a somewhat regular basis, how we feel about the prayers that we say, in the sense that when we ask for things like what we just did in that prayer, for rain in its proper season and moment, if we are believing our prayers are being answered and responded to. I mean, we do pray with meaning and with intention. So this past Saturday, actually it was Sunday, I don't know if you remember what happened on Sunday evening. It snowed. Well, we had a wedding here, and when I arrived, the father of the bride said to me as I walked in, "My daughter's not that happy. We expected you to be praying for good weather." So I thought I would be funny by saying, "Actually, on Friday night, I prayed for precipitation." He did not appreciate that. So in a moment of inspiration, I said, I prayed for it to rain in Israel, not to snow here, but it was too late. But in all seriousness, why not? Why not believe that our prayers are somehow heard? Why not believe that this focus, we had a speaker here a couple of, was it last week? It was last week. Right, so she was speaking before the hostages, any hostages were returned, and it was still kind of up in the air, right? Because as she started off her talk, she was a young Israeli woman. She was saying the deal is made with a terrorist organization. They could turn around and not follow through. And so she told us what? To imagine them coming home and being embraced in their mother's arms. How many of us saw those videos this week? So why not? Why not take that leap into that sense of faith that if we really have strong enough intentions and focus, we do have an impact in the world around us. So take these moments of silent meditation and prayer to really focus in on your prayers. Maybe those will come to fruition as well.
Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Hu yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yal kol Yisroel, v'imru amen. O say shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom.
By the way, the bride ended up being very happy. Everything went very well. Everything worked out very well. But these things do happen. In addition to our prayer for healing, I meant to put up on a slide for a prayer for Israel. So, I can find that in our prayer book. Well, there it is. Page 113. Avinu Shabashamayim, O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there, and let us say, Amen. We turn our thoughts and prayers at this time to those who are in need of healing. And we can turn to page 371 in our prayer books, but before we join together in singing the prayer for healing, I invite you to speak the names of those you are thinking of who could use a prayer for healing right now. And we'll turn to those who are here in person first, and then to those who are joining us on Zoom. Yes, Jody. Nancy. Hildy. And Denise. Alicia? Prue and Amy. Fran? Julie? Philip? Stephen? Okay, sorry. Paul? David Rosenzweig. I think it's the din in the background of the heat. I can hardly hear anything. Yes. Richard, did you have your hand up? No, okay.
Susan, Carol, Fern, and Eric.
And now those who are joining us on Zoom, either unmute yourselves and speak names or just put them in the chat. Go ahead, Nancy. You are muted, though. Okay. We can add to the names that were said. Miriam Leah, David Scott Cohen, Sandy Cohen, Jared, Gary, Elizabeth, Ruth Stambler, Kati, Fern, Arlene, Lynn, Leah, Karen G., Marcia Colton, David and Chie, Eberhard Rom, Matthew and Melissa and family, Chelsea Vennett, Alex Vennett, Richard Cohen, Paul, Elise, Lois, Eileen Nolan, Arlene Terso, David Ben Yitzchak Halevi, and of course we include the hostages that are still being held, and of course those who have been returned as well are in need of healing. What was that? Oh, okay, yes. Gloria Duell. Okay.
I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Carol Shea. Marina Guevara and family. All the people at the rehabilitation center need healing. And Eric. I think you said Eric, right? You're not supposed to say names Steve said.
No, that's okay.
Anyway, oh, okay, Eric. That's it. Thank you.
And Sora Mindel as well. And now we turn to page 371 to join together for the Misha Baruch prayer.
Misha Baruch Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikur habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema,
the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Amen.
We come up to reading from the Torah. We are in the exciting story of the Jewish experience in Egypt, all the plagues that accompany them. In fact, we have several plagues in this week's Torah portion. And seeing the transformation of Moses into leader and the Pharaoh into an enemy of the Jewish people. So this is, let's begin with a blessing of study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. The passage from this that I chose, God is talking to Moses and says, I have now heard the moaning of the Israelites because the Egyptians are holding them in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the Israelite people, I am God. I will free you from the labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through extraordinary chastisements. So in thinking about our Torah reading and what's going on in the world, of course, I always try and connect some message between the Torah and to help elucidate, to help explain, to help clarify something that we are experiencing in the world. This week's might be a little bit of a stretch, but that's okay. So this coming Monday is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Are we aware of this? I'm not always so aware of this. It's a day that commemorates the liberation of Auschwitz. Yet this date has no significance to me and for many other Jews in the Jewish community. It's not even listed on my Jewish calendar that I have in my office. It was a date chosen by the United Nations, generally not been a friendly place, especially to Israel over the years. The United Nations designated that date, I guess that Monday in July, usually the 26th, or in this case the 27th, back in 2005, not too long ago. The Jewish world had already, by 2005, about 60 years prior, had two other dates to commemorate the Holocaust: Yom HaShoah and Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht is what we acknowledge as the onset of the Holocaust. It was that night when an organized and blatant, physically violent attack against the Jewish people, including the breaking of glass in synagogues, the killing of Jews, erupted across Germany, not only by Nazis, by civilians, against the Jews. That's something we should commemorate. Yom HaShoah originally commemorated the resistance of Jews during the Holocaust in places like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Also, another time that we should acknowledge that we did everything in our power. So we don't need another day. As a matter of fact, I would even make a critical comment that to celebrate the liberation that was a bit late in the game. Let's call it that. And yes, that was important, but it doesn't teach us anything about the message of the Holocaust. So basically, who and what is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day for, if it's not for us? So I guess it's for the non-Jews of the world. Well, let me ask you something. If it is meant to remind the world of the hatred perpetrated against the Jews, is it doing its job? I hate to sound too cynical, but I don't think it has been doing its job. Obviously, we're all aware of the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. Is it just another day on the calendar that is another Memorial Day? There are a lot of Memorial Days on our calendars, whether they are the international calendar or the American calendar, that go unnoticed, right? So it's bothersome to me that there's a day that's called the Holocaust Remembrance Day that's not insignificant to the Jews, and it's not significant to the world. Or not significant enough, in my opinion. But take the American Memorial Day, right? So Yom HaShoah, and they're Memorial Days to some extent. Well, the same thing has happened with our Memorial Day in this country. Think about how it has such little significance of remembering those who died on the battlefields to preserve the values we are supposed to then internalize and be thankful for, that they sacrificed their lives for. But instead, Memorial Day has been rebranded as the first day of summer, the unofficial start of summer, the time when you can start wearing white again. And of course, big sales. I mean, we chuckle at it, but it's true. We think of Memorial Day sales. Maybe in the background in the commercial, there's a flag waving. That's about it. So, I guess my issue is that I find it problematic when Memorial Days become commercialized and lose their meaning completely. But it also happens with memorial places. Have you heard about the Anne Frank pop-up exhibit through the Center for Jewish History in Manhattan? You've heard about it, right? Not everyone's heard about it, so what is it? So, first of all, it opens on Monday at International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It'll be open for a limited time, and it's meant to simulate the Anne Frank house from Amsterdam. But again, I ask, who and what is this exhibit for? Well, if you go on to the website for the Center of Jewish History, you will find a quote. The Anne Frank house, comma, one of the most visited historic sites in Europe, will open an Anne Frank exhibition in New York City. What? One of the most visited sites in Europe? That's why it's being opened? Not so an example, that just this one example of how innocent Jews had to escape being killed by Nazis and by their neighbors in order to live in a horrible situation in which one of their neighbors was willing to keep them hidden in a teeny tiny space to do anything to survive, only to then, later of course they were caught and then murdered. Not that. But I'm afraid and fearful that this pop-up will be nothing but a tourist attraction. I'm reminded of a powerful article I read about 10 years ago by the sister of a woman who died in the South Tower on 9/11/2001. She wrote, "The worst day of my life is now New York's hottest tourist attraction." So again, it was about 10 years ago. She was writing from this perspective of her heartbreaking sense of loss, contrasted with her first visit to the 9/11 Memorial downtown Manhattan. She described her complete sense of loss as she imagined that as she walked on that newly paved ground, so to speak, Her sister's ashes were somehow underneath the pavement. And as she was feeling this incredible sense of despair and loss, she noticed the thousands of visitors who appeared to be out for a day at the park, oblivious to the tragedy that seemed, that it's, at least from her perspective, that occurred there. And then the author concluded her article with the outright dismay she experienced at the end of the tour, the gift shop. So back to our Torah portion, which in a way also marks a memorial. The memorial of our ancestors as their time as slaves in Egypt, and of course the loss of many lives there. But how is it that when we commemorate Passover, like during our Seders, we feel so much more emotionally connected to that event which happened 3,500 years ago? Not quite that long, but over 3,000 years ago, than we might feel about Memorial Day in this country? Why is it that we feel we can be moved and feel a sense of connectedness to those Jews and what they went through compared to so many other memorials? I've been giving this thought and realizing that the Bible has it right. The Torah has the right way to memorialize. It's not by designating a day per se with nothing associated with it. It's not by dedicating a building and walking through it and observing. It's not by building a statue either. But it's by putting ourselves in the position of really trying to go through it. I want you to think about what we do at the Seder, right? We begin by saying we were slaves in the land of Egypt. We eat the maror and we are supposed to tear up. And the other elements, each of which remind us of different parts of the life that was experienced in Egypt. And then it moves us. It wants us to feel a touch of pain in order to feel a touch of joy and sadness and freedom as well. That, in my opinion, is the right way to memorialize. It's the right way to remember. And so I challenge us to think about how we can improve the memorials that we do participate in, be it Memorial Day, Yom HaShoah, or any of the others, and see if we really can connect in the same way that this story that we read in the Torah portion and that we read every year and that is part of who we are is. By really trying to understand the values and understand it and experience it and empathize with those people themselves. And so I hope that we find those connections through our Torah portion and in the world, and to remember that our Torah still has opportunities to teach us and elucidate what we are going through. Amen. We continue on page 586 as we now rise together for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai v'melech ha'kol ha'aretz Bayom hahu Yihyeh Adonai echad Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. You may be seated as we take these moments to offer additional memorials. And even then, when we think about the ways that Jewish wisdom has guided us to memorialize our loved ones, it is not just to remember them, right? We honor them through our actions. We give charity in their name. We study. We learn. We try to live by the values they possessed. We light those candles as a reminder that their light somehow still burns in this world because it burns through us. It's really some beautiful ideas. So we remember during this recent period, this time of Shloshim, this month of mourning, we remember Samuel Sitkoff, beloved father of Robert Sitkoff, Shirley Garfinkel, beloved mother of Elliot Arnold, Howard Zuckerman, beloved temple member, Bernard Richard Quinlan, beloved father of Dr. Richard Quinlan, Dorothy Lubau, beloved mother of Nanette Baker, Marvin Levine, beloved father of Brad Levine. Are there any others whose names can be mentioned for those who have died in recent days? We also remember at their yahrzeit, the anniversary of their passing, Nathan Berman, Gilda Bluestone, Bruce Goldberg, Samuel Goldfein, Phyllis Goodman, Warren Hyman, Cheryl Kaczynski, Sheila Kessler, Jean Klein, Sam Meister, Ethel Nass, Hyman Needleman, Marvin Rappaport, William Riesel, Joseph Rogoff, Morris Yesner, Marion Zauderer, and Phyllis Zuckerman. Yes. Paul Cherry. And any others whose names have not been mentioned. We turn to page 598. And of course, in addition to the names we have mentioned, we remember all of those who have died defending our country and defending its values. Those who have died defending Israel. And all of those who perished in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. Zecher Tzadik Levracha, may the memory of the righteous live for a blessing. I ask all the mourners among us to rise, along with those who say the Kaddish each time it is said, as we join together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'alma divarach chirutei v'amlech malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ulamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal Shemei d'kudsha v'richu, le'ela min kol be'achata v'shirata, tuishpechata v'nechamata, dam miram b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'rmomav, v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all the bereaved among us. And let us say together, amen. Please be seated. And I did want to acknowledge our cantor emeritus, Richard Berman. How always so wonderful and nice to see you. Thank you for being you. We have some announcements of upcoming events, and we have a voluntary member of our Board of Trustees, Stan Goklang, who would like to read the announcements, unless one of our other board members wanted to. Did anyone? I thought we might have a little competition going.
Roll too. Shabbat Shalom. Our scholar in residence, Richard Quinlan, invites you to a program online on January 31st at noon in honor of Holocaust Remembrance Day. The program will feature author and Holocaust scholar Deborah Levine. Ms. Levine will discuss the urgent need for Holocaust education and how to confront the misinformation and hate that has become increasingly prevalent. Please see the week ahead for more information and how to watch this amazing program. There is a Shabbat dinner and a special service on Friday, February 7th, which is Shabbat Shira, or Sabbath of Singing, commemorating the Israelites' crossing of the Red Sea. The service will feature our adult choir, religious school students, and our 4 High Holy Day musicians. Nancy and Michael Zisselman will be sponsoring the Oneg that evening in honor of the Hebrew naming of Ella Zisselman. You can sign up for the dinner through your email in the week ahead. The next book club meeting is on February 25th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The book is The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. Please contact Rena at riparub@verizon.net if you want the spelling on that. I can give it to you afterwards. Or call her at 516-286-6139 for more information. After services, please join us for an oneg of tea, coffee, and delicious desserts.
Did everyone get that? Those phone numbers? How about this? We'll hand you this after services if you would like those. All right. We have a closing song, a rousing version of Ein Keloheinu, is that correct? I think it's on page 626. This is one of our favorites, right? I always feel like for this one we should rise. So if you're comfortable, please rise for the Ein Keloheinu. Did you want to join?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know this is one of Vince. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, God of our mothers and fathers who have gone before us, Bruchim atem b'voachem, Bruchim atem b'tzeitchem. You've blessed us in our coming here to this moment. May you bless us in our going forth. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Zoom, and we will see you at upcoming events.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Madeline. Take care, everyone.
Great service. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Hey, Joe, just want to test to see that my microphone is working here.